Ms. Lee, if I may start with the first question. The question is around Chinese diaspora. Since China's opening up 30 years ago, the Chinese diaspora has played a very significant role in helping China to become the world's second largest economy. And there's 3,500 Chinese entrepreneurs from all over the world here this evening, and they would love to hear from you. What do you have to tell them that what might be the roles of the Chinese diaspora and Chinese entrepreneurs in the next 20 years of China's economic development? Or do they have a role at all?
过去的30年，中国的官员跟企业家没有国际上的经验，现在他们相当有丰富的了解外面的情况，可是他们要在外面，在国际上。创造他们的企业，他需要我们的帮助。
所以说就是中国在未来的发展当中，可能他们会需要各地的华人的商人。
当然，
是，这也是意味着中国的企业会越来越强大。Okay, this is a very interesting dialogue because I now speak in English and Mr. Lee speak in Mandarin.
English is my first language, Chinese is my second language, so we will mix up both.
Right. So this is a sign of the success of Singapore's bilingualism. And I'm happy to say that I like to think that I'm a beneficiary of that system myself. If I may ask the next question, which is China's biggest challenge. In the Singapore Global Dialogue last month, you mentioned that China's biggest challenge today was the widening gap in terms of income between the coastal provinces and the inland provinces, and among the provinces on the coast in the cities themselves. But in the past, you have always said China's biggest challenge was corruption. Have you changed your mind?
No, I've not changed my mind, except that I have 我看这个关系跟红包的问题不能解决。这个是一个中国的传统的习惯，我认为要改变人民的想法态度是不容易的，
所以这还是中国面对最严峻的问题。
对，可是没有办法改变。
通过时间可能改变吗？
在中国，关系是最重要的。你没有关系，什么事都不能举动。你要搞关系，一定要找红包礼物，简单的。
OK， 那么新加坡我们这么多年来能够得到的这一些在贪污方面的一些让全世界感到很尊敬的一个地位的话，是否有中国值得借鉴的地方？
我们的背景跟中国的背景完全是两样式的。我们开始是法治，不是人治。法治是定，不管你是官员多么高干，你一定要是服从法律。所以这个改变整个社会的态度跟习惯。
中国有可能法治吗？中国几千年也有法家的这个文化。
中国是人治的，谁做领袖，他的命令是成为法的。
Thank you, Mr. Lee. That was a very animated response. Would you agree? Yeah. Mr. Lee, if I may now move on to just away from China, maybe into Europe. 我们先从中国暂时离开到欧洲去先游一下啊。The world breathed a sigh of relief when the German lower house passed a bill on the expansion of the backstop fund, which will be used to bail out troubled states in the Eurozone. Obviously, there are some other countries that have yet to pass the bill. But do you see this as a strong resolve on the part of the Europeans in wanting to make Eurozone sustainable, robust, and viable in the long term? Or is this just another desperate attempt in fighting a lost cause, and that is the Eurozone is destined to collapse?
I have no doubts that their intention is to keep the euro in one piece. Therefore, they've all signed up to this rescue effort. But is it the end of the story? Is this one-off? I don't think so. 27 countries have different disciplines, different spending habits, different saving habits. You're trying to make them all the same. It's very difficult. So you have to bail out the Greeks, then later on you'll have to bail out the Portuguese and the Spaniards. And how many times do you have to do that? So I think in the longer run, it is very difficult to sustain it.
But do you think that the Germans and the French may have sufficient motivation to keep Eurozone to be viable as long as possible, and they will do everything possible to
They will try, because it's a political decision they made to solve wars between European countries by having one euro. I'm not sure it's sustainable.
I see. Maybe we can move from Europe to the U.S. President Obama submitted his American Jobs Bill to the Congress. And in his address to the joint Congress session, he asked the Congress to pass the bill and pass it now. And he at the same time audaciously dared the Republicans to vote it down. Now, do you share the same pessimism about the U.S. as you do Europe?
I believe basically the U.S. is a more dynamic economy. Europe is less dynamic because it has a welfare subsidy to carry the people, health, unemployment, and all sorts of welfare support. So that makes for a less vibrant economy. So my belief is whatever the troubles the U.S. may have at present, they are more likely to overcome their problems than the Europeans, because theirs is a more self-reliant society. I mean, if you're unemployed, they give you something, but you got to make the effort. Whereas in Europe, you're unemployed, you take your unemployment pay and you do part-time work, so you get double pay.
So it sounds like the Americans are more motivated, more industrious.
No. Theirs is a leaner system. It makes you work.
It's work ethics.
Yeah. It's discipline.
Discipline and work ethics. Well, thank you. I think that was a very direct and very animated response as well. If I may follow up with a question still on the U.S. Come November next year, do you think there will be a different person that will be the occupant of the White House?
Well, nobody can say. It depends upon the economy, whether unemployment figures will go down. At the moment, they are not. So at the moment, it doesn't look good, but something may turn up and unemployment may go down, then Obama can win. But if it doesn't go down, then it's very difficult for him.
And what is your read of the Americans' commitment to the Asia-Pacific? To Asia-Pacific?
Well, they will want to maintain their links with the western side of the Pacific, but over time the Chinese will grow in their naval capacity and their aircraft, and therefore they may have to share the influence on the western side of the Pacific. That's over 10, 20, 30 years, depending on how much progress the Chinese make in their Navy and Air Force.
Do you foresee that China might become the dominant force in this part of the world as a matter of inevitability?
Possible, but I don't think it's likely that the Japanese, the South Koreans, Southeast Asians would want to have China as a dominant force, and they will always want to have the Americans inside the area to balance the Chinese. That gives us more space.
Is that the common aspiration shared by most Asian countries?
Surely, of course.
There might be a few exceptions, perhaps?
No. You take Vietnam. Do they want the Chinese to be dominant in the South China Sea? No. You take the Philippines. Also no. You take Korea and Japan. I don't think they want China to be dominant to the exclusion of the U.S.
But perhaps many Asian countries might be drawn into the Chinese economy, whether or not it's our choice or not.
That's a different issue altogether. The Chinese population is 1.3 billion consumers. So it's an attractive market. But that does not mean because you want the markets, you want them to be dominant militarily. That does not follow.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I think that was, again, very illuminating insights into the geopolitics as we live in today.